Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Noon on Tuesday. It is Gina here. And on the phone today, we are going to catch up with Janet Fletcher, who is a writer, an author, and a cheese lover. Welcome, Janet. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good, good. Well, I know you are calling us from the beautiful Napa Valley. You were all okay? Everything that happened up there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I am. I'm one of the lucky ones,
Yeah.
and other people were not so lucky.
Wow.
We've had a lot of damage, but it's beautiful up here. We really want people to come up. I mean, you can drive all over Napa Valley and not see the fire danger because the fire damage. It was mostly in the hills,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful place to visit in the late fall. So
Right.
I would just encourage people to come see us.
Come to Napa. Go to Napa. Visit Napa Valley. Yes, sounds good to me. Wish I could make it up there, I tell you. So, Janet, for people that may have not read you before or heard about you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a food writer, a general food writer, and I've been doing it for a long time. I'm working on my 30th cookbook.
30?
But I'm also, the reason I know you is through cheese. Cheese has become a real specialty over the last 15 years or so. I write a blog called Planet Cheese every week, and I have written 3 books on cheese. So it's
Yes.
a real passion.
That is a passion, Janet. And can I tell you a story? When we first opened Venissimo 14 years ago, I think one of the first books I bought was your cheese course.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
That was my first book on cheese, and it's still in print.
Yes.
And it was followed by a book called Cheese and Wine, which is my bestseller.
Okay.
And then about 4 years ago, maybe, I wrote Cheese and Beer. 3 years ago.
Oh, that is really great. And I know we got to meet you because you were here in San Diego for a book signing once for Cheese and Beer, and that was fabulous.
That was pretty cool.
It was
always
really
happy
cool.
to be in your stores.
Oh,
Yeah.
super. We're always happy to see you. We're doing, it's beer week here in San Diego. It's maybe everywhere, I don't know. Beer week here in San Diego anyway. So we have a lot of beer and cheese classes and stuff going on and featuring your book, Janet. So, yes.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know San Diego is like ground zero for craft beer.
Isn't that crazy?
I think you have more breweries per capita than any other county in the country.
Yeah, that's just wild to me. You wonder why here, but I'm glad we have something because I get jealous about Napa Valley because you guys have everything. The produce.
Well,
and
we're starting to get more beer, so that's pretty exciting.
That's right.
We don't have cheesemakers. We do not have cheesemakers. They're
None?
mostly in Sonoma County
Yeah.
and Marin. But it's all grapes up here.
All grapes, and they're delicious indeed. Yeah, but you're close enough to those lovely cheesemakers, so that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, it's a really fun little weekend trip to come up here and go touring around Sonoma and Marin County. There are a few cheesemakers that will welcome visitors. A few places where you can go and see a little bit of cheese making, maybe through a plate glass window, but you can buy cheese direct on the farm.
Sure.
So it's a fun experience for people who are traveling up here.
Right, right. One place I know that has that view is Nicasio, right? It has their little store up front.
Yes.
You can kind of see into their production.
That's a great operation. They started making cheese maybe 6 or 7 years ago. They've been in the fluid milk business for a long time, very successfully. And they started making cheese, and they went back to Switzerland, to the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, where their great-grandfather was from, and they found a cheesemaker they loved, and they asked him if he would help them create cheeses, from their heritage, so kind of Swiss-Italian type cheeses, and they make them with their own milk. They have a few hundred acres in Marin County, and so it's farmstead. It's all their own milk, and the cheese they make that I love most is one called Tomino, Tomino. It's really a tasty little disc.
A tasty little disc. I need to taste that disc. Can't say that I have the Tomino.
Yeah, it's kind of a hybrid. It's got it's a bloomy rind, but it's also got a wash on it, so it's got a little bit of funk, but it's creamy and yummy. Cow's milk.
Ooh, sounds good. I got to visit those cows, Janet. I know exactly what you speak of their big farm, because I rode through there when I rode the Vespa from Seattle down to San Diego visiting cheesemakers. And get this, I stop at Nicasio. You know, it's remote where they are. Not much around, and there's maybe 2 cars parked in the lot and my Vespa. Go inside, and I'm looking around and talking and watching the cheese get made. And then up walks a person, you know, as I'm getting, you know, back outside to the Vespa, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we know Venissimo. We shop at one of your shops." Is that crazy that I happened to be there the minute that somebody else was there?
That's lovely. Yeah, really, it is a small cheese world.
It's a small cheese world, and that is what I was going to just bring up. How cool is it, Janet? And do you still see that? Because you've been writing about cheese. I know you wrote, you know, you still write for San Francisco Chronicle. You do articles about cheese a lot. Do you still see that camaraderie in the cheese business? And
yeah, I mean, it's gotten to be a bigger pie, but I think everybody, there's a lot of just desire to help each other, to help them, especially among the American cheese community, to help each other get better.
Yeah.
That sentiment that time raises all boats, I think it's really prevalent in the American cheese community. So it doesn't do anybody any good for American cheeses to be inferior. So everybody's interested in helping their colleagues get better and better.
And better. Yeah, that's really great. And we have gotten better, right, Janet? I mean, winning world cheese competitions, not just, you know, here in the U.S., right?
Absolutely. I think we can be very proud of our domestic cheeses, especially how far we've come in such a short time.
Yeah.
I think about some European cheeses that have been made for centuries, and like, you know, Comté and Gruyere, and we're making cheeses that are, you know, on a par with them after really just a generation or two of cheese making.
Yeah, that's really super. Really super. Well, I was reading a little bit about you, Janet, and I understand you went to college in Provence, or you spent some time there in France?
Well, I did. I spent a semester abroad my sophomore year in the south of France, in Provence, and I think that's really what switched for me. Cheese, cheese, and I just saw there that, first of all, I think what captivated me was that tool that the French have around these, that they have it at the end of the meal, and it comes to the table in a restaurant, and it comes on a cart.
Yeah,
there are 20 cheeses, you can have as many as you want, and I just fell in love with that moment, and that ritual. And then, of course, the cheeses themselves were so different from
right. Anything else? Can you repeat just the first part of that, Janet, when you said you're in Provence, right before you said, you know, bringing the cheeses to the plate, something broke up in our connection, maybe really close to the phone? Or
you know, what it appeared to me that 10-year-old in the south of France didn't grow up.
I'm still losing you, Janet. I have no idea. Hold on. Sorry to interrupt. Is it, can we get closer to the phone, or something's really busted up? I couldn't understand you there. Whoop. We have lost Janet. Give me a second, everybody, because I want to hear about her tale of cheeses in Provence. But what a better place to learn about cheese, right? I don't think you could get at a finer place than a country that has...
Janet had to leave to do a little writing real quick.
Oh, that's it. She's on deadline. We'll give her just a second.
There.
Hey, Janet. Sorry, we just heard the typewriter typing. You must be on deadline and had to jump off the phone really quick.
No, I'm not typing.
Okay. Somehow we lost you there, Janet. If we could just go back to when you were in Provence, what was your first cheese experience right there that kind of made you fall in love?
What I really remember from those days as a 19-year-old in the south of France, in the town of Aix, was going to the farmer's market and seeing 10 different types of goat cheese. I don't think I even knew goat cheese existed, much less that it was fresh goat cheeses that were really soft, down to cheeses that were as hard as a rock that you had to grate.
Sure.
So I just had my eyes opened about the variety of cheeses, and also that whole ritual of having cheese at the end of the meal, and a whole platter of cheeses would come to the table. Or if you were in a restaurant, there would be this cart that the waiter would wheel over, and you got to pick all the cheeses that you wanted. It was just eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
And it really started me down this path.
Of the cheese. And it sounds like you then came back to the States and fell in love with the farmers markets here, right?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of how it happened, Gina. I did start shopping at farmers markets, and this was really back in the early 80s, so there weren't a lot of them, but they were starting to pop up, and I ended up writing a book called Fresh from the Farmers Market. In the early, I think it was really the first book about American farmers markets and encouraging people to shop at the farmers market and get to know what grew in each season and how to select it and then how to use it at home.
Sure.
With some very simple recipes. And the book is still in print, I'm happy to say.
That is really great. That is super cool. Then I understand, did you spend some time at the lovely Chez Panisse?
Yeah, I did. That was actually before the book. That was my kind of my training ground.
Nice.
After college, I went to cooking school and then ended up getting a job at Chez Panisse right when they were opening the cafe upstairs. So that's where I worked, and I learned some really good habits and attitudes. It was just a very formative experience and has shaped shaped the way I think about food and about eating, and it changed my life.
Changed the life, isn't it?
Those experiences can happen to you when you're 20 or 22, or you just have your eyes open. And, I just loved being there.
You did, really receptive to it. Isn't that interesting that just part of the life can lead you some direction that you fall in love with? And that's really great. Did you, on the cooking, I see a lot of the books have like cheese recipes. Do you make your own cheese? Do you like to make fresh cheeses yourself? I know you have a book called Yogurt.
Well, yeah, I love making yogurt. Tomorrow, actually, I'm doing a little ricotta demo. So I do make very simple cheeses like ricotta or labneh, which is just yogurt that you've drained until it's like cheese. I've made fromage blanc, but that's about as far as I go. I don't get into aging cheeses or doing anything more complex than ricotta. But your own homemade ricotta is killer.
Right, it's killer. You just
really,
wonder that
you'll never taste ricotta as good as the one you make.
Yeah, and why would you ever buy it again, right? Once you've made some, I have to agree with you there.
Well, I do buy it, but I love the Bellwether. I love the Calabro. I do buy it, but if you ever, if you have the time to spare and want in a DIY mood, making your own ricotta is very satisfying.
Right,
and it's so fun to turn that basket upside down on the table for guests, and everybody's always with that you made your own ricotta.
Ooh, and And you're like, yes, I slaved away. And no, that is so perfect. Perfect. No, I'm with you. I got to leave the cheese making to the experts. And thank goodness there are so many good experts out there now. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
really.
It's clearly not easy to make good cheese because we've all had a lot of not very good cheese.
Yes.
And it's just not easy to get all the parts lined up the aging right, and I really applaud these cheesemakers who hang in there and bring us such beautiful cheeses because it's a long learning curve.
Oh, me too. Do you have like overall absolute favorites? I know it's hard to choose, but is there something that you just really love that really resonates with you?
Well, I don't have a single favorite cheese, but I would say that my favorite category of cheeses would be the aged sheep's milk cheeses, like Ave de Balak or Ossoirati or Pecorinos that have some age on them, Manchego that's maybe 3 to 6 months old. I love those Spanish sheep's milk cheeses.
Yeah, the sheep.
And what would that be?
I think we've got sheep in San Diego now. Did you know? Yeah, the sheep.
Well, if you serve me a platter of cheese and there's an aged sheep's milk cheese on it, that's the one I'm going to go to.
You're happy there. You're happy. This is good to know. So you are the expert, Janet. Can you share with us, with those aged sheeps, do you have a special wine? If you're going to pick one varietal, say, to go with it, what would that be?
Well, I'm kind of a Cabernet drinker, and I love the tannin in Cabernet, the structure of a good Cabernet, especially on the younger side. I'm not big on, super aged red wines, but I like them kind of young, and when they have a lot of fruit and still have a lot of tannin. And I think that it's a great match for those sheep's milk cheeses, which are kind of like the cheese equivalent of a lamb chop. And certainly with a lamb chop, you're going to have a nice bottle of Cabernet, or I would. So Cabernet is my go-to.
Is the go-to for that and pairs nicely. What about on the beer side? What would you recommend with something like the aged sheeps?
Well, you need a beer that has some power to it. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at the upper alcohol range. Mm-hmm. I really like with those cheeses have some buttery notes to them, buttery and nutty. So I want a cheese that's more malty, not a hoppy beer like an IPA. I wouldn't go there, but I would go to the beers that are more malty, like a Doppelbock.
Ooh,
that alcohol and the malt for those cheeses. Some of the Belgian beers, like doubles, have a lot of spice to them and alcohol. Those are great with aged sheep's milk cheeses.
Ooh. And to do your books, Janet, are you just testing these all the time? How does one come,
It's a whole lot of eating and drinking.
Exactly. I would say like constant.
A whole lot of tasting.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But no, it's an accumulation of notes over time and experiences over time. I do take notes, and I just would encourage others to take notes about you. If you want to get better or learn more, it's kind of hard to remember all these things. So start a little, file and keep notes on what you taste and what you like, and share it with the merchants where you shop, because they'll then direct you to the right that cheeses and beers and wines that you're likely to enjoy.
No, that's awesome. What have you seen change, Janet, like in the world of, back 14 years ago when we started Venissimo, there were very few American cheese shops, but now there's really a lot. You seeing any trends? Are you seeing things that are more driving you crazy, things that you're liking to see in the whole sale of cheese, the world of cheese?
Well, I really like shops that have a carefully curated selection. I'm happier in a shop that's small and where they have a point of view and they're just selling a handful of things, as opposed to the shop that tries to be everything to everybody. That said, I think Whole Foods does a really good job with cheese. You do have to serve the kind of customer who just wants to grab and go, and they do a pretty good job at servicing that kind of experience. But of course, I love shopping with the independents, merchants who do their own buying and buy a lot of local things.
Sure.
Like, I would say that's really has become a trend in cheese shops, is the support of what's local. So wherever you go, whether I'm in Vermont or Michigan or Wisconsin, I know that I'm going to look for that cheese shop, and I'm going to find a cheese shop that's really prioritizing the local product.
Which is so super nice. For us, the most local, mostly we can get is, of course, Northern California, with all its beautiful cheeses. But it's so interesting. It's so nice now that we have such a good variety local and domestically than we do from out of the country. It's just awesome.
Yeah. We have, I can't think of any style we don't make.
Exactly.
And, American cheesemakers, like American beer makers, are, I think, more experimental than their European counterparts. So we see a lot of one-off kinds of stuff, like cheeses washed with, the neighbor's beer.
Yes, sure, exactly. Some cider.
Spices or seasonings or, grape leaves or... Yeah. Not that Europeans don't do this too, but I think there's a desire in the U.S. to make cheeses that others don't make.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? We talked to a French cheesemaker, and he said that American spirit is we're not bound by old world traditions, that a certain cheese has to be made exactly this certain way. So then it's kind of like this wild experimentation that we see in the U.S. with some of the cheeses, which I kind of agree. Yeah, it's just people will try anything.
Yeah, and that has its downside. And if you don't, one reason cheeses like French Comté is so fabulous is because they've made it forever, and they make it according to a recipe, and they hand that down. And there's just a consistency that
Yes,
comes out of that
exactly.
kind of experience
Mm-hmm.
that's admirable.
Yeah. And so it's good to have
I know.
both worlds, the experimentational world and then the one where you know what you're going to get, like you said, with the Comte or the Parmigiano Reggiano, right?
Right. You can always count on getting a great piece of that because as long as the merchant has handled it well.
Sure. Which is a whole other episode. Tricky.
Well, yeah, for sure. One that you asked about pet peeves, and I would say one thing that I'm noticing, maybe because I just am more attuned to it now, is a lot of cheeses that I buy at retail are a little bit, they're oxidized.
Mm-hmm.
They have a stale taste to them on the outside, and so I always like to see the merchant scrape a bit off the outside because cheeses just oxidized taste when they're wrapped in plastic and they're in that case with the lights on them.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. It's a very, very good point. They have to be unwrapped and treated. People need to know that this is a living product and that breathing is so important. And you're right. Scraping off that little thin layer makes such a difference from what's underneath to what's underneath.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until I heard someone, a scientist, speak about this recently, but the lights in a cheese case are really damaging for cheese. So I like to shop at stores where they have a lot of turnover and where I know they're rewrapping the cheeses frequently.
Exactly.
If I get it home and it tastes kind of stale, and I would encourage other people to do this, if it tastes a little bit stale and cardboardy, take your knife or a cheese plane and scrape off that outer layer, and underneath you're going to have a nice fresh taste and aroma.
That's a super tip, Janet. Super tip. And never ever throw it away when you feel that outside is just has that taste. Underneath will be good. Yes. And I think it's important, though, because cheese, it's an expensive product. Like we encourage so often to sample it because each wheel's different. Perhaps it has been wrapped a long time. You got to sample that piece before you buy it, I think.
Absolutely. And never hesitate to ask for a taste.
Exactly. Know what you're going to get. What keeps you going, Janet? How does one write 30 cookbooks? How do you know your next topic? I mean, to me, that's mind-blowing. I can't even get one done the way I would like.
Well, I'm always looking at, I read a lot. I follow what other people are doing. I'm always looking for trends and something that just flips my switch. A lot of projects come to me. I do a lot of collaborations with chefs or other people who want to write a book and don't have the time or the capabilities. So I have done a lot of collaborating over the years, and currently I'm collaborating with Wine Institute, the trade association for the California wine industry, on a book about sustainability. So I'm writing about sustainability in California agriculture and grape growing, and it's a cookbook. And
nice.
Really fun project.
Fun project. Are you seeing California do more and more of that? Like the focus is becoming on that more, sustainability?
Oh, I think everybody's.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everybody, but most thinking people are focused on how they can grow their crop with less water, with fewer chemicals, with more environmental sensitivity. And a lot of that, the sustainability extends to workplace issues, how you treat your employees. Yeah. That's part of the definition of sustainability. Are you running a sensitive operation where people want to be, and you're treating people well and paying them well and providing opportunities for advancement and growth, and that's all part of the definition. At least in the wine industry, it is.
Yeah, and you're so much in the heart of it. Was it hard to write a book about beer and cheese when you're in the heart of wine country?
No, it was not hard for a second. It was a total pleasure. I was just really sorry when it ended, and I've been trying ever since to think how to do a sequel because it was so much fun. I once heard a very well-known food writer talk about how she had been told for years that you should write about what you know, but that she got the most pleasure about writing about things that she didn't know because then you get to learn. Yeah. And that's what the Cheese and Beer book was for me. It was just a deep dive into craft beer, and I have not come up for air yet.
So many to try.
I just love these beers. But the hard part is, because I still am a daily wine drinker too, it's just really hard to find enough time for, both wine and beer in a single day.
Yeah, true. Good point. You have to alternate,
I'm working on it.
When you figure out that plan, write a book on how you do that.
Right.
Because I think people would like to know.
Yeah.
But I like
in my house, we tend to have, we'll have beer at lunch and wine at dinner.
Oh, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. If somebody, this is the age-old question. If you're going to pick one or the other, when would you pick wine with cheese versus beer with cheese? Any?
Well, I'm always happy with either one, and I do find that there are some cheeses that are hard on wine, and I've never found a cheese that I can't find a beer for.
Okay.
But there are some cheeses that really are just so potent that they are a challenge for wine.
Yes.
But, it's more about the context. If I'm with a bunch of beer drinkers, then we're going to have beer with our cheese and vice versa. Some of the blue cheeses that are quite pungent are, you either have to have a sweet wine or, go with a beer. I don't like to mix beer and wine at a single meal. So we're either going to
pick one or the other.
Dinner.
Sure.
Yeah. One or the other.
Oh, nice. What do you think's the perfect, if you're doing a little pairing, like let's say you want to have a little party at your house with friends, would you say do 3 pairings, beers and wines, 3 beers?
I think people get confused with too much going on. When we're having a dinner party, a seated dinner party, we would tend to only have 3 cheeses max. And sometimes, Gina, I'll just serve one perfect cheese with a wine or a beer that really goes with it. So I hope people will feel that that's something they can do at home. Is you don't have to have a giant platter with 5 cheeses on it and condiments, nuts, and that's beautiful, and very enticing if you have the time to go to that effort. But it's also very satisfying to just go to a cheese shop and find one amazing, fabulous, unusual, hard to get cheese, buy a big piece of it, and serve that, and make a big deal out of having something that's really singular and special.
Oh, that's a good idea. Would you just, Janet, could we just put a big wedge? Would you put a big wedge in the center of a board with accoutrements around it? What would you picture the one wedge?
You could do that.
Yeah.
I don't fuss, honestly. Sometimes it depends on the season. Right now, we're deep in persimmon season, so I would have persimmons or grapes, apples. I was also, all the great fall fruit now, apples, pears, and then fresh nuts are just coming in. So just to have some cheese with some walnuts that are in the shell and past the nutcrackers.
That's right.
The great thing about cheese, Gina, for me, the great thing about the cheese board at the end of a meal is that it gives you an excuse to sit around the table a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So we always have it. I don't have cheese as an appetizer typically. I have it at the end of the meal, and we open another bottle of wine, and we just hang out longer. And that's what it's all about, relaxing and
conversation.
Slowing the meal down.
Yeah.
So.
That's a super good point. And you would do that, well, you'll do it after if you have any dessert, right? Let's say you had a little chocolate cake.
No, we don't typically, we rarely have dessert. We have cheese instead of dessert.
Perfect. Okay.
If there for some reason I'm having dessert, it would come after the cheese. But
nice.
Usually we end with cheese.
Yeah.
And I think people are pretty satisfied.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know how anyone could argue that that's not the best dessert. I don't know personally, but I'm biased.
Yeah, really. I think it ends the meal it can end the meal on a sweet note. Sometimes we'll have a sweet wine like an off-dry sherry or a Madeira or a port with cheese, and it really becomes like dessert. Sometimes I'll take, especially in winter, a really incredible blue cheese that I've found and serve it with some nuts that I've toasted, like almonds and hazelnuts and walnuts, a combination, and then I fold those into honey and serve that with the blue cheese and a sweet wine, and that's
how perfect.
Dessert.
There's dessert. We're really good.
Take 10 minutes.
10 minutes. And you can't beat that. 10-minute dessert. You heard it here. Okay, Janet, we just learned of something today, and I don't know if they grow these up. I don't know where these come from. Okay, I'm holding up, and I wish you could see it. It's called a hidden rose apple. and it's pink inside. Have you ever seen this?
Well, I've seen apples that are pink inside,
Yeah.
but not that particular one. There's one called Pink Pearl
Okay,
that
maybe
some of
similar.
the California growers
Yeah.
grow.
What would you put with that? What do you like best with apples, since it's such a good apple season?
Oh, it's more that I don't really think in those terms, Gina, honestly.
Okay.
It's if it's apple season, then I might have apples with my cheese course. But I also just, I am not unhappy with just beautiful piece of cheese and nothing else. Sometimes not even bread or crackers. I just want to focus on that beautiful cheese.
Yeah.
So I don't. I think people come to my house sometimes and they think I'm going to have this fabulous cheese platter with all the
I'm sure.
condiments. And then, sometimes it's just a great piece of cheese.
Yeah, it's all you need. That's all you need. Keep it simple. Yeah. On that note, Janet, thank you for sharing. What is your next book that we should be looking for?
Well, it's not related to cheese, but certainly people, the cheese lovers who are listening, I hope they will sign up for my blog, e-newsletter, which is called Planet Cheese, and they can find it, they can subscribe on my website, which is janetfletcher.com.
Perfect.
And they will get Planet Cheese every week. It's just a way to learn something new about cheese every week.
Yeah, and there's so much to learn, and thank you so much. Have a very happy fall and holidays, and I'm going to go think of which one wedge I'm going to finish dinner with tonight. So everybody,
good, Gina.
Yes, thank you, Janet. Take care. You're welcome. Chat again soon. And everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk next week. Ciao.